One of the earliest starting series in the fall 2021 anime season was Blue Period. Kind of popped up out of nowhere on Netflix, and unfortunately, although getting an early start, has kind of been behind just because we have that 3-episode delay that Netflix is doing. At least we can be grateful that it's there on a weekly basis. But Blue Period actually impressed me a lot. As I finally jumped into this series and watched the first 4 episodes, I found myself being emotionally attached to a lot of the characters as the story went along. But this is my thoughts on the first 4 episodes of Blue Period, so let's jump right into it. Blue Period follows Yatora, and Yatora seems to be, at face value, a very rough guy. Kind of has piercing, hangs out with his friends in the evening, they go out and they drink a lot. He smokes a lot at school, and despite that, he's actually has really good grades. Like, straight A kid, does really well. A lot of people kind of claim that he's a genius and that it just kind of comes naturally to him. But as you see from watching him, as he leaves his friends, he studies a lot at night to get to school the next day and pass these tests. And you do get a perspective from him that everything kind of seems meaningless. Yes, he does really good, he studies really hard, he gets really high grades, and it's satisfying as kind of meeting a quota. But it doesn't seem like he's very passionate about his success. And you find out through his interaction with his parents, they don't have money to send him to college, so his choices for his future are kind of limited. And one day when he goes back to the art club late at night, he ends up running into this large painting that this girl named Mori has been doing. And this painting kind of captures him. The colors and everything really kind of jump out at him, and he spends a little bit of time talking to Mori about this painting. And it seems like through his interactions with Mori, this painting, and his conversation with their art club teacher, Saiki, he ends up getting a little bit of an interest in painting. As they end up having a project they have to do at some point, he ends up recalling this really blue scenery in this one morning in the city. And while obviously this city in this particular area didn't look the greatest, it was that blue tint that he ended up seeing that kind of captured him. And he wanted to put it to painting. And he tries, and while a lot of his friends kind of joke about his work, it catches the attention of people. They notice the beauty of what he's trying to create there. And after getting this positive reinforcement for the art that he did, he becomes interested in art, and he starts drawing more and painting more, and it becomes kind of an obsession with him. Until eventually he decides, what if I can do art? This is something that's actually rewarding to him. He feels rewarded by doing it, but his fears are still there in the idea of how is he going to pay for art school? The fact that art sometimes doesn't really pay. All these things are kind of struggles for him, but still, his passion really drives him to seek out and try out art, all the way to the point where he actually puts it into his future report that he wants to go to art school. And obviously this is something that his mother's not really too happy about because, again, she doesn't have money and she fears for his future, obviously, but it's something he strives forward. And I think the mother sees that passion as she kind of catches him asleep in his room surrounded by art. Eventually he ends up going to prep school, meeting a lot of other people, including a Yotasuki, who is I guess somebody that probably knew him previously, that is angered by the fact that he has both friends and he's getting into art. Different things such as prep school, exam art, learning stuff, the expectations of getting into a school, all those things are kind of flooding around in the story as it goes along. So yeah, so far I'm really enjoying this series. It's kind of a breath of fresh air in the realm of slice of life. We don't really get too many really solid, pure slice of life shows, and this is definitely going for that. It's a drama slice of life series, pure and pure. It's not a comedy series. It's not going for anything else but just the fact of here's this guy's segment of his life. This is a guy that's very passionate about what he does. He's very studied. He pushes really hard. He tries really hard. And now he's got something to kind of direct his passion to, something that's giving him meaning. And despite the fact that he's not the greatest starting out, you see through his perseverance and the hard work he puts into it, he's gaining something as he goes along. He's not always good at things when he first starts out, but you see that he strives and he pushes himself in order to gain more and more skill in what he's doing. And obviously the response of people around him. Now, when I seen the synopsis for this series early on, I kind of felt it was going to be one of those things where he's a rough kid. He learns about art, he gets in there, and then everybody turns around and says, it's not as good as you think it is. The synopsis really makes it out as if the people that he was going to meet getting into art were going to raise their nose at him very quickly. But I was really happy to see most of the people are normal. They're like, okay, he's doing art. Okay, back to what I was doing. It really does feel like these characters are kind of grounded. Now, yes, you do have characters like Yotasuki, that is obviously right now kind of pushing back at him a little bit. But I'm assuming that's going to be around the idea that he's seen that he was once this kid running around with having fun with all of his friends, and he was over here studying really hard, But then here comes Yatora, and he's just jumping right into art and doing really well. I mean, obviously, having him beat him in a certain competition definitely rubbed him the wrong way. But yeah, I love a lot of the characters in the show so far. There's just so many good characters. Mori was fantastic. I loved her character so much. I hope we see more of her. Just her support of him. I love the drawing she made of him, and she points out the idea that she believes the origins of art is around this concept of prayer, and how she drew this Nike, this goddess of fortune and success, and gave it to him as like a message of him striving and getting better. The scene with the mother was so good. It was such a good scene, because it was like this moment where obviously the mother wants best for him. She's not really okay with him going into art, because art, obviously, it's difficult to get into. There's very few successful artists. So she obviously has this feeling of uncertainty about what he's doing. And then to have him give this drawing, which, yes, it's not the greatest drawing ever, but what the point of the whole thing is that he was drawing her, and through drawing her, he's seen details of things that she's done. He sees the damage of her hands in hot water. He sees these muscles in places that aren't normally normal because of how much work she's put into taking care of them. Every food that she makes for them every single evening, breakfast, all this kind of stuff that she's done to take care of him and his father. And he's finally realized that through art, because he had to look for those details. To draw, he had to see those details he always overlooked. It was such a good scene. It had me just welling up. I couldn't take it. It was so good. Saiki Sensei and Oba Sensei are fantastic as well. Oba Sensei, I like how she has to duck to get into the room. Like, oh man, a tall lady. You don't see those often in anime. It's got such a good cast. I think the only thing that I'm really kind of hesitant on is after the whole scene with the mother, I haven't really had a really powerful moment in the show since then. Now, granted, I don't expect a powerful episode in every single episode. It's just, it feels like 3 and 4 kind of I seen that peak coming in from episode 1 all the way into episode 2, and then episode 3 and 4 it kind of just dipped down a little bit, and I haven't really seen anything in there that's really capturing me right now. With that said, though, I think everything that happens in the show is for a reason. Like, every scene has a reason for being there. The context, what the character's going through, every kind of advancement that Yotaro is seeing, he's learning things on a regular basis, and a lot of these things have actual meaning to them. Getting into still art, getting into composition, getting into different styles, the concept of the exam art, learning exam art through cram schools, and the misconceptions of what that is, those things all have meaning and are a very interesting subject to get into, especially since I don't really know the art school culture in Japan, and it's very interesting to get into. Additionally, I really love how much emphasis the story puts on the concepts of a genius, somebody that's just naturally good at something versus somebody that puts a lot of work into it. I loved the moment that Yotaro came up to Mori and said, "You're just a genius at this. I wish I was this good." And she's like, "I'm not a genius. I've just spent every waking hour of my life doing art. I had to learn to do this." And it hit him because he's always been called that. He's always been called a genius because nobody sees the hard work he's putting into everything. They just immediately see that he's getting straight A's and he messes around after school. They don't see that he spends all night studying in order to get where he's at. I liked a lot of the stuff they got into regarding imitation versus composition and creating your own work. All that stuff's been really solid as well. Just the different styles that each character has and exploring those different styles is interesting as well. I was really happy to see how supportive his friends are of Yotaro, because I kind of assumed that the moment he got into... Again, this is another one of those assumptions I made, because again, when I first seen the synopsis, I assumed it was going to be he's going to go into this art club and everybody's going to raise their nose at him. I assumed that the moment he got into art, his friends were going to turn on him. And it's not really going around those tropes. It's really kind of keeping it centered around Yotora's journey and the difficulties that he faces himself in learning and expanding on his capabilities or his art. So yeah, super excited for the series. It's doing very well. Have thoroughly enjoyed the last 4 episodes of it. Like I said, a little disappointed it's already in like episode 6 or 7, I think maybe 6, but we're getting them pretty quickly over here. And like I said, technically started really early, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. Not know how long this is going to be running for. It's an ONA, so I guess it can go really any episode count, but I do hope it's a long running series, because I think it's a really cool cast of characters they can do some really fantastic stuff with. Like I said, a very pure slice of life show about art that's doing it very well. It's not too information dump, so don't get me wrong. This is not a story that's going to be like, okay, here's a 5-minute explanation of what composition is. it's really basic stuff that it's throwing at you that kind of explains what he's going through and what he's dealing with. And you're kind of learning along with him, and I think that's really solid. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Blue Period. Hope you guys enjoyed my impressions. If you did, leave a like down below, comment, let me know it's a lot of series. We're going to check it out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon or through our tips link in the description below. We thank everybody that does, and y'all take care.